head out for the day. Cool. So we're going to be talking about information architecture and how we can get more of a user-focused information architecture through card sorting. Has anybody heard of card sorting or information architecture?
Yeah.
Yes. Both or one, Trev?
Information architecture, I've definitely heard of. If you were to like put a gun in my head and ask me for what it is right now, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I have heard some members of like teams I've worked on mention it.
Cool. It's kind of like a user flow, a little bit, but a little more focused on the final organization and structuring in a system. So this could be, if you consider it in a website, this would be your navigation and your sub-navigation. In the instance that we're doing it for our assignment, we're doing it in a console. So what falls under what? This could also be under your, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a weapon system in a game. How are things organized that way? So the information, how is all of that organized? Or the settings, how are those organized? So it really aims to ensure that there is efficiency when navigating through a system. I'm sure we've all experienced navigating through some sort of digital platform or a game and been like, why is this under this section? This is where the art, we'll call it, of information architecture. There's people that literally their job titles are information architects, because it is such, or it can be in some instances, be a very, very big and overwhelming process, especially if obviously there's lots and lots of content to be there. What is the best way? So building an information architecture involves a strategic approach to organizing and structuring that information. This is where we think about the hierarchy of our elements. So are we going to have something that our user is going to need to use in a game? Probably 90% of the time, are we going to have that at the bottom of the list, or will we have that at the top of the list? So that's where that final IA comes from, we call it. Doing a card sorting session puts the focus on the user of what they think will function well. Because often we might think a great way to organize something is, going, A, P, Q, Z. But when you talk to a user, they're going to be like, that makes absolutely no sense. It should be this, 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 this. So the considerations when we are doing an architecture is how players move through the game. This could be maps, menus, waypoints, any other tools that aid, pardon me, in them using and integrate or navigating through the game. Hierarchy is a big thing as well, so it involves organizing those elements. So we think about it in the game, we're talking either main quests to side quests, what's going to come first. When we label things, this is also a very important thing. Sometimes it's fun to give different names for like either buttons or systems or sections, but we need to also make sure that they're still intuitive and we're not losing our users, because there's, instead of just calling it an ice cream menu, we're calling it a yum yum delicious, and you're like, huh? So making sure that things are clear and they're concise. And then of course, consistency. So making sure that how you're going to navigate through one section is also recognizable and cohesive and consistent with another way, because we don't want to jumble that up, and then have your users constantly having to relearn that system every time they go into another area. So making sure those menus open the same way, they're slightly organized the same way, makes for a little bit more of an intuitive experience. So when we get into card sorting, that's a technique that helps our researchers, developers unlock how to do that with the user in mind. Like I said, we all have our ways of doing things, but that could also be very different than what our users do. And hopefully, as you might have already experienced in the class so far, is that sometimes what we think isn't exactly what goes. So card sorting is kind of like that puzzle, just like information architecture. So we're assembling all of our pieces together in the best way. So we want to make sure that Things are sorted logically. So things like characters, items, levels, objectives, everything is going to go into a logical group versus confusing our users. Just for example, has anybody experienced an existing game out there right now where you felt either lost on their organization system or you can't find something all the time? Yeah, I'm sure. If you never have, then goodness gracious, that would be just amazing because even the best of the best does it. I think I've brought it up, but thinking about different TV platforms. So when we talk about Crave versus Apple TV versus Netflix, they all have their way of navigating through systems and their way of, say, reminding you what was recently played, or are they called favorites, or are they called recently watched, or are they called pick up from the last time? Everybody is going to have their own way to turn them, and everyone wants to be unique, but we also still want to make sure that the user is aware and they understand. So
This
when we
is not
do
a game. Oh, sorry.
oh
I'm
yeah,
so sorry.
yeah, no, please go for it. No, no, go.
This is not a game. I was trying to think of games. I think maybe like Pikmin 4 has some weird, like when you're trying to grab items, it can be oddly organized. I was just thinking when you mentioned like TV watching and movie watching apps.
Yep.
If anybody here watches reality TV, if you use the Hey You app to watch like Real Housewives of Salt Lake City or whatever, whoever
Oh, I
made that
love it,
app
but
is
no.
insane. Like Hey You is a terrible app. Nothing ever makes sense. You can never find the things that you have fully watched, like
Yep.
on the front screen.
Yep.
It's like, hey, I've been watching Love Island for about 2 weeks now. I think it should be there.
It should be up front and center,
Yes.
and it's not there.
No.
So it's funny. So
Thank
I
you,
mean,
Joe. Thank you, Joe.
is
She understands. I
Jo-
see her in the chat.
is Joe agreeing? I can vouch for this one too. So, I mean, I love all of those shows. I don't watch them on Hey You. I have yet to watch Love Island, and boy, do I need to watch it because the talk is just driving me crazy. But I pay for Crave. This is just again TV platforms. This is one of the ones I always find is easy to kind of like get people to into the mindset of like where those frustrations can lie because they don't always fall. It may be in a game, or you might not completely remember offhand because there's so many under the sun. But I pay for Crave, and Crave is not a cheap platform, and that damn UI drives me bonkers. The way everything is organized there, and I'm like, I pay you folks so much money. Can you pay someone to fix this, please? So, again, sometimes the best of the best out there are still doing it wrong. Even Apple TV, I find when you're like running through a show, I think if you've watched it, there's like a teeny tiny white check mark in the bottom. And I'm like, this is too small for my old lady eyes. It looks like a fleck right now. I can't tell if I watch this or not. Anyway, so that's where all of this comes into play. So when we are doing our card sorting, again, that brings the focus on the user for them to organize and sort things. So we enhance their experience. We can increase their discoverability. So items that they might have otherwise lost within a menu system, they're able to find. Of course, we're improving their navigation. And yes, it's always like everything, iterative design. So once we do something, we give it a try. How did that land? Still a little bit of confusion. Okay, and we go and redo and we try again. So there are two forms of card sorting that can happen. So we can have an open card sorting. And this is when I talk about cards, it's going to come a little bit more into, or maybe I'll explain it now. So when we do a card sorting, that's where essentially we have every single item or menu piece that they need to go through, and we're putting those on sticky notes, kind of like we did with the exercise with the affinity mapping. So we have everything there. So if we have a whole board full of items that we need to organize, that's where an open card sorting allows them to take all of those items, group them into any group they want, and they can call it their own. So the benefits to doing this is we get diverse perspectives because they might have considered calling something perhaps a menu, a name that we might not have been previously aware of. Obviously, it encourages their creativity because they have full flexibility and freedom to do this. And then it captures emergent themes. So it allows for that organic groupings to happen, where, again, something that we might not have previously done, it allows them to do. Closed card sorting lets them still organize things themselves, but you are now categorizing things. So you tell them what buckets they want them to go into. So again, if we have 20 tabs and we need to bring them into different categories, this is what we give. So we give them the categories and they get to sort what goes what, or goes where, sorry. So this can be a little more consistent, especially if you're testing with a lot of people. Kind of like when we do a qualitative research, our feedback is going to be very wide open. So someone might say they don't like something, but they're going to term it in a very roundabout way, and it's up to you to decipher that. Or someone might, be very brief about it. So it's going to be up to you to find those consistencies. So when it's closed, we've kind of closed the door on that. So it keeps their focus. So potentially if, say, you really only want 4 main options or 4 main buckets of information, if you leave it up to other people, they might provide you with 7 and you're like, oh, it's too many, I didn't want that. And then again, like qualitative, it really simplifies that analysis. So we can do those in person and online. If they're in person, like I said, Post-it notes is a really great way to do this. You could have them, I have to sneeze one moment. Oops. Pardon me, I meant to, I was trying to hit my mute before that first sneeze came out. So you could do those on Post-it notes. The advantage to that, to doing them in person, is you can always get the body language. You can ask them questions if you're okay to, if you want to interrupt them. And then you get a little bit more freedom in that group dynamics. When we get into a virtual card sort, this is great because you can do them at any time. There's 2 kind of main ways that are great to build card sorting. I'm going to show you one. Actually, I might show you the other one as well. You can obviously reach people from all over the world, and there's a convenience factor there. So when we analyze, just like we have done for all of our analysis, we find the common themes. So did 7 out of 10 people put this weapon under this category, and then the other 3 put them in this random category? So where's the consensus, essentially? We group if needed, and then we can note those variations. So wrapping up, mastering that IA will be key, and it can come in many shapes and forms. It can come from that initial main menu. It can come from your tools. Like I said, it can come from maps, etc. But being able to effectively rearrange that information is definitely an art. But then, of course, at the same time, if you can achieve that with a user focus, even better. Pardon me.